Hi there, welcome to Radar Talk. This is a video channel in which we invite experts working in the field of major projects to come and talk to us about ideas they've got or new concepts, or actually things that are working in practice around the field of collaboration. Now today we have Paul Cacchioli, who is Director of G&T Fairway, and he's currently seconded to Network Rail as their Head of Claims and Contract Compliance. So today we've asked Paul to come and talk to us about this fascinating new concept that's being rolled out through Network Rail through the Capital Works programme called Dispute Avoidance Panels. So Paul, what are Dispute Avoidance Panels and how did the idea evolve?
I've been seconded to Network Rail for just over 2 years now, and part of my role as Head of Claims is to try to sort of help develop initiatives that might actually reduce or minimise claims as much as possible. Clearly Network Rail has a huge programme of works to be delivered. I think over the last, or the current control period, that's sort of £25 billion. And quite rightly it's in our interest to make sure that we can deliver those projects with as minimal number of disputes as possible. Most of our projects are very expensive, very complex, so the risk of dispute is reasonably high. So one of the things that we discussed along with our supply chain at the Commercial Directors Forum was whether there was any initiatives we could propose that would help to do that very same reduction of claims. And a working group was born out of that CDF, where there was representation from the legal fraternity, but also from our supply chain and commercial directors. And we discussed about how can we actually look to avoid the dispute before it occurred. And so we came up with this Dispute Avoidance Panel initiative, which hopefully is now starting to gather momentum within the business. We've run a sort of 4 or 5 project initiative and a pilot to sort of test how that works in practice. We've sort of taken that our find from the pilot back to the Commercial Directors Forum and sought their approval and support to roll this out into a wider number of projects. So when we went back to the CDF in December last year, we got almost unanimous support from the sort of 60 or 70 delegates. So I think that the industry is behind the idea, and I think from the pilot we've proven that it is robust and can be beneficial, and so hopefully now we're in the sort of deployment phase where we're now starting to gather a number of projects where we can hopefully widen the net, and I think we're up to sort of 7 or 8 separate projects who are now interested in sort of participating, and hopefully over the coming months we will start to see some benefits from that.
Great. So how does the process actually work?
So the process that the working group developed really was, I think the main focus and where some people get slightly confused is it's purely about dispute avoidance. So this is about trying to find embers of dispute before they've sort of evolved and developed into the bushfire that we're trying to put out. And as part of the process, we ran a pilot, as I mentioned earlier, across 4 separate projects, and we constituted panels of experts, people who live and breathe disputes. They understand the genesis of most disputes in construction projects. So we had quantum expert, we had legal representation from the bar, we had and sort of construction stroke planning experts as part of that panel. But most interestingly, we also had a behavioural expert involved. So that we could actually not only test the technical aspects of where some of those disputes might rise, we also had the behavioural expert looking at some of the sort of, I guess, softer cultural issues that may be sort of underlying and actually sort of creating some of those disputes, particularly where with Network Rail we have a number of our big programmes are multi-party alliances. So actually lots of people being brought together for the first time, lots of separate businesses that are sort of starting to work together. So I think for us it was important to have that behavioural dimension, so that you can actually understand that are people really sort of working together in that collaborative environment, or not really. And so, as I say, the sort of the concept behind it is that the experts, you know, are invited to the project. The project spend some time explaining about the project, providing some sort of insight to what's going on. I think it's also important to say that before the panel arrive, they are provided with a sort of pre-read pack of documentation, so they have a brief understanding of what the project's all about, where they are financially, where they are in terms of programme, where some of the project's perceived issues are, where they believe they have concerns. And then when they sort of arrive at the project, they have that sort of interaction with the project team. And then really it was, I think our initial thoughts were that the project team would sit and talk to, you know, both senior management, to, you know, the practitioners, you know, out on the various areas of the project, from the QS to the planners to the risk people, to the project managers, sort of talk to as many people as possible to get that feedback as to, you know, what's going on, you know, what are their day-to-day concerns. It's all very well that the leadership going, you know, we've got these concerns, but actually some of those underlying issues may be further down, embedded in the project, where actually, you know, some of those things either maybe not sort of manifest themselves just yet, but in time, if we don't nip them in the bud.
That's your point,
you know,
about small dream.
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, the issue was to sort of to talk to as many people as possible. So what we did find in the pilot is actually we started as a group of experts, we started to disperse amongst the projects to try to talk to as many people as possible, and also perhaps talk to some of the people in groups, so that you get some sort of commonality of some of those issues. So if you talk to some of the QSs and the risks people together, and the procurement professionals, you're getting, you know, some crossover between what may be happening across that.
Yeah, some different stories.
Absolutely, and then they feed off each other, and you know, but I think you know the key for us was to make sure that it wasn't perceived as another audit, another peer review. You know, one of the comments that was made back to us was, you know, we're part of a multi-party alliance. You know, we get lots of peer reviews, we get lots of audits. Actually, you know, having these experts come and talk to us, who are all independent of all the parties involved, you know, we get a chance to sort of be open to people and actually express some of the concerns we have. And I think certainly that the feedback we got was all along the lines of actually that level of independence. As I said, you know, none of the experts involved have any relationships with any of the parties involved, and so actually they can just provide that sort of extra set of eyes, that clear mind, that focus, and say, well, actually everything is fine in these areas, but actually there's some issues over here that you as a project may want to tackle. And then sort of the next step to that is that at the end of the day, the programme get issued a sort of a very succinct sort of 6-7 page report, which basically summarises some of the key findings. The main difference, I guess, is that the panel provide a summary of observations. They're not recommendations, they're not you must do these things, they're a list of observations that say, actually, you know, some of these may be critical, some of these may be, you know, essential for the project to look at, and some of these may be slightly more general. But there's no, you know, enforcement of those observations. You know, the project have provided those observations, and then it's, you know, down to the leadership of that project to decide whether they want to address some of those observations, or quite frankly whether they just want to sort of file them away and do nothing with them. Okay. And I guess for us, as you know, running the pilot was, well, what will the reaction be? You know, will it be, yeah, really interesting, but I'm not that interested in your observations? And certainly the one project where we did do a return visit, they absolutely addressed every observation. Now I think there was sort of half a dozen of them. They addressed every single one of them fully, and they were really keen to show the panel when they went back that actually we haven't just played lip service to this, we have fully understood the observations and we have addressed them, and this is how we have addressed them.
Brilliant. It's a great example of real collaboration in action.
I think so, and I think, you know, as I say, the issue, the concern for the working group was, you know, how do we, what was the reaction going to be from the project, but also how can we demonstrate its benefit, you know? Because I think, you know, lots of organisations, you know, need to be able to demonstrate its benefit. And I think in trying to sort of avoid disputes, how can by running a panel, how can you demonstrate that you've avoided a dispute? And I think certainly that's one of the things we will be looking at moving forward, as to how we can sort of articulate that, either from a purely commercial point of view or from a slightly more sort of holistic point of view that says actually this is of benefit to Network Rail and to its supply chain, and these are the reasons why.
Great. Do you see this concept working outside of Network Rail?
I think so. I think there is an appetite, certainly within the wider sort of, I guess, infrastructure world, and probably wider than that. I think every project that is run, the parties involved, quite rightly, it only makes sense for them to want to avoid disputes. We constantly hear that the number of disputes that occur, the financial implications of that, and also the relationship damage that causes, and the distress to the parties that are in those dispute environments. So I think, I think it would be attractive to everyone. I suspect some of the big clients where they've got constant and regular investment, so obviously the rail sector, but if you looked at highways, water sectors, the sectors where there is that sort of high level of both complexity and investment, I think they would see some interest. We have had some discussions with Highways England. I think they are showing some interest, and I think that's something that Network Rail need to sort of develop that a little bit further. But quite rightly, in Network Rail's role as being involved in as a major infrastructure client, I think by showing the success of the DAP in its current form and how it evolves, I think other leading clients would also show some sort of interest in that, and hopefully we can sort of feed into that, and I suspect improve it as we go along, because I dare say that there are sort of improvements that can be had to make it more effective, and also to sort of draw in experiences from other areas, and from other sectors, and whether other sectors are interested in doing something similar or something slightly different. I think we can all benefit from each other's experiences of trying to reduce, minimise it and avoid disputes as best we can.
Fascinating. I think this is a really great innovation. It's a really good example of moving beyond talking about collaboration and actually creating some new tools to make them work. Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.